Hey everybody, welcome to McFarland Minutes. I'm Natalie McFarland, founder and president of McFarland Productions, director at Off Your Rocker Films, and your host. In these episodes, you can expect deleted scenes, in-depth campaign reviews, project highlights, marketing concepts, book reviews, and a deep dive into the creative process at Off Your Rocker Films. We'll also be covering invaluable lessons on mentorship, leadership, and the business of it all. We are so excited to be releasing our episodes every Sunday as your soft launch to Monday. Hey everybody, welcome to McFarland Minutes, your soft launch to Monday. We are super stoked to have you this week. One of my favorite people in the industry, Miss Jessie Jarvis.
Oh, thank you. That is high praise coming from you.
Yeah, founder and CEO of the West, and also just one of the most incredible human beings. I don't know if I've ever told you this story before, but when I was like little baby in the commercial side of this whole thing, right? I really hadn't made any kind of name for myself. I ran into you at Pendleton, my very first year at Pendleton, and you turned around and you said, "You're Natalie McFarland, right?" And it was such a moment for me. I was like, Jessie Jarvis knows who I am?
Well, of course I know who you are. You have always been a big freaking deal in this industry.
Oh, it was just such like a, I don't know, such a welcoming moment, and just like made my whole Pendleton that year. So anyway, that's my nerdy I love Jessie Jarvis story.
Well, I love hearing that. Thank you.
So since then, you started Of the West. I've been on y'all's podcast. I think everybody on the planet knows that I love Of the West if you are following me anywhere. And we actually just hired another individual through Of the West. She hasn't even started yet. She starts on Monday. This is coming out the day before she starts, so that's kind of fun. But Of the West is one of those resources that just has made such a large difference in the industry. And as an employer in the industry, you know, there's LinkedIn and there's, Facebook jobs. Is that even a thing anymore? They did it for a while. I haven't used that in a billion years. But there was never a space that you kind of had this pre-qualified ag background, you know? And so when Of the West came to be, it was a game changer, because I can remember posting jobs on LinkedIn and I would get like people from India and like all kinds of stuff that just wasn't a fit, you know? Anyway, so Of the West has become a platform that I am just an absolute heavy user of anytime I get the opportunity. So
Well, I just feel that is such high praise, because you are somebody who has such a successful business. And not only do you yourself have a successful business, but you also work with other successful businesses. And so the people on your team really do need to be top notch in order to execute at the level that they need to serve the type of customer that you get to work with. And so to know that you feel like you can find that person through Of the West and have continued to do so. I mean, as you mentioned, you've been a user of the platform, honestly, since the beginning of its infancy. So to know that you continue to come back and find great talent, that is why we do what we do.
yeah, I think my only complaint is sometimes I find too much great talent. And then I actually have to pick somebody out of that group, and that's pretty hard to do.
Don't you just want to hire them all and
Oh
have this
my gosh.
infinite amount of money that you can devote to salaries and hire
my
10 people
gosh.
at one time?
Yes, for sure. I think I had like 72 applicants or something for this last one. And it might have actually been more than that. I think I quit like looking after a while because it was getting so overwhelming. But something that at least seemed more developed to me this time than it was the last time that we used the platform was your filtering system, to be able to like mark for review or interview, like what stage the person was at. That was wickedly helpful. I, in fact, made people go through the Of the West. If you didn't apply through Of the West, you just came to me. I said, "Thank you. Now go apply through Of the West," so that I can actually track what you're doing. But that's enough about my fangirling on Of the West. But I think what I was really hopeful to chat about today is primarily remote work. And I think we can attack this from two sides, one from the employer perspective and one from the job seeker perspective. Where do you want to start, Jessie?
Oh, I would say, yeah, what comes first, right? The chicken or the egg? Let's start on the employer side of things, because I think that they really are the if they do not create remote positions, then remote positions don't exist for job seekers to apply to. So they really do kind of come first in the process.
So I know, like, we are a fully remote company. We've been a fully remote company since the beginning, primarily because no matter what happened, I was always going to be partially remote running around this country. So figuring out from ground zero how to be a remote company is pretty different than a company becoming remote or starting to allow remote later. What are you seeing from employers from a remote perspective that you feel like maybe employers who are new to it or maybe haven't hired remote in a while should be thinking about?
Yeah, so I think that you bring up such a good point about how much easier it is to start as a company that is remote versus start as an in-office company and then expand to remote. I think there are a lot more challenges there. I say that as Of the West is the same. We started as a fully remote company and we will commit to doing that. And the reason that that is something that I am passionate about is we represent people across the United States
Mm-hmm.
coming from different sectors and different walks of life. And so I feel like I owe it to the people that we work with to have employees who are also based across the US versus all being based in one single office, because I don't think that then we're doing a very good job at representing the type of people that we work with. So
Absolutely.
that's one of the reasons that it is just a core piece of our mission is to be remote. I also am really passionate about rural communities. And so I know that if I expect people to come in office, then again, that takes away the potential employment opportunity for somebody who lives in a remote town in Kansas or Wisconsin or
Mm-hmm.
Georgia. And I really do believe in the power and importance of rural communities. So that
Yeah.
being said, though, I lead with that because I do think that it is important for a company, if a company wants to, whether they are starting from scratch and they want to just start with remote work, or they have been in office and they want to add remote as an opportunity, I think that it is very important to kind of have a good mission or leader as to why you want to go remote. So again, for us, that's just because that is a core piece of our mission and who we want to represent. So if you are a company in the livestock industry and you sell to cattle producers across the US, then it's probably a good idea to have a team that is a representative of the type of cattle producers across the
Mm-hmm.
US that you are selling to as clients and customers.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that is something that is really, really important. And I'm sure you kind of see the same thing on your end too.
Yeah, for sure. I think, something that we really look for is number one, do you have some sort of an ag, western, outdoor background, right? I would much rather find somebody who has a passion for and life experience in the industries that we are serving, right? Than somebody who maybe is just looking for a remote position, right? And maybe has a million skills, but really difficult to truly understand who it is that we're serving without having lived some of that. The other thing too is I've had some incredible employees who don't have the opportunity to be an in-person employee because their other half is a ranch manager in Bly, Oregon, right? Bly has a post office and a gas station, and that's about it, right? So, like, if you limit to just in person, that is a really difficult thing because you might actually find your best person in Bly or Fossil or whatever, right?
Yes. No, I firmly agree with that. And I always use the example of a graphic designer. How many companies do we know employ a part-time or a full-time graphic
Mm-hmm.
designer? And you want them to be in the office so you can check in on what they're working on. But how many people are actually creative between the hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. inside the four walls of an office or maybe even a cubicle?
Yeah.
Mm, none of us.
Yeah.
So again, going back to that example of let's say like an animal nutrition or animal health company who your client and customer are people out on ranches across the US, why wouldn't you want to hire a graphic designer who lives on a ranch somewhere, who is the type of person that is literally using their product, who has an office window that looks out onto a pasture where
Yes.
cows are. Like, that is
Yes.
creativity, right? Like, being able to be out and immersed in it, to see it firsthand, and then to bring that to life through whatever it is that they are designing. That
Mm-hmm.
to me is a no brainer, because I think it's very evident to see that type of person is going to be far more creative in that setting than they are 8 to 5 in a cubicle in an office, whatever that looks like. So whenever people are dipping their toes into the, where can we make remote work for us if we're just trying it out, I do tend to push people towards those creative type positions, because I think that the return on your investment, you're going to see really great results from people because
Mm-hmm.
you're allowing them to be more creative in that sense.
Yeah, and sort of be inspired by life. It kind of goes
Mm-hmm.
by, it goes with hand in hand with influencers, right? Influencers' number one best content is almost always based on their life, right? It's
Yes.
something that they are living. It is something that they are doing on a daily basis. I am just imagining this graphic designer, using this as an example, still sitting in there looking out the window, watching, maybe their other half feed that morning or whatever it is, right? And that puts you in that inspired by life
Mhm.
piece, where maybe if I'm living in downtown Austin and I'm designing for a feed company and I'm working in a cubicle, is a little less accessible to me, right? I'm gonna have to watch it through a screen.
Yeah, and the whole point of our work is we want it to be relatable to the people who are already using our product and those who we want to become users of our product. So you have to meet them where they are, which is
Mm-hmm.
obviously not in downtown Austin, Texas. It is out on the ranch, in the field, whatever that looks like for the product that you are working with.
Yeah. So, top 5 recommendations for an employer who is posting about a remote position on Up the West, because where else would they post?
Agreed.
uh, what are your top 5
Oh,
recommendations?
okay, top 5 recommendations. And again, this is specific to Of the West. Number one is the job description. And this is probably true whether it is remote or not, you have to have an incredible job description. You really want to paint a picture of the type of role and who is going to be most successful in that role. I know
Mm-hmm.
that job descriptions are very overwhelming for employers, but that really is setting the foundation for who you are going to attract. So making sure that you have a really great job description, that's remote or not. The remote piece of that is, everybody wants a remote job at this point because it does offer a lot of flexibility. So I do encourage employers, make sure that you are making that job sound harder than it is. And that's not what I would actually tell an employer, but I want to make it like as easy to understand as possible. So make sure that you're really focusing on the strategy and the other types of very, very important high level requirements that are applicable to that job. Because if you just make it very basic and generic, you are going to get hundreds upon hundreds of applicants, and a good portion of those are going to be people who are not qualified. So
Yeah.
do yourself a favor, work a little bit harder on the job description on the front end, because that's going to save you a lot of time on the back end. And that is something that unfortunately we can't control, because we can't limit who does or does not apply for your positions. And remote work is something that the whole world wants right now. I
Mm-hmm.
understand why that is. So you really do want to highlight the strategy and the requirements and the experience that somebody needs to have going into that role.
Mm-hmm.
So that would kind of be we'll call, is that 1, 2,
Two,
1.5, however you want
two.
it.
I
Yep.
don't know. Yeah, we
Okay.
actually did a revision on our job description because we were getting people who were not at the level or the experience
Hmm.
requirements that we really needed for the position that we wanted. And then I put it in like big old fat bold type at the beginning, right? And added a whole paragraph about who that person really is and isn't, right? And that really changed the applicants that we were getting. In fact, there were many that I dang well wanted to afford and knew I couldn't.
Yes, and again, like, and I hate to say make the job sound harder than it is. That's not really what you actually need to do, but I think that that kind of helps people understand you just really want to hone in on the type of candidate that this is, the type of previous experience that they've had, the type of, again, strategy that this job involves. Don't make it sound easy and fluffy, because then you're going to get a lot more people who just want something easy
And
and
fluffy.
exactly. Yeah, that's not the type of person that you want. The next piece of that is, which you kind of mentioned this earlier in the show, about how we have a really robust set of features now where you can mark people as they are, what process they are in the interview. One of the things that we've also added are screening questions. So I
Hmm.
highly encourage you guys to take the extra time to fill out the screening questions portion of that. So these are yes or no questions that the job applicant is going to answer. So let's say that Natalie is hiring a social media manager and she wants you to have 5 years of experience. One of the questions that you then write in the screening questions are, do you have 5 years worth of experience in social media management? Then that way the job applicant has to answer, yes, I do, or no, I don't. So you continue to reiterate those requirements that you need the right candidate to have so that they can, again, answer those in yes or no format. There's 3 questions that are available. And then at the end, when you are in the dashboard of your site, as you're looking through those applicants, you can see how many people are 3 of 3. So that means that
Yeah.
they answered yes to all of your
And
questions.
you can sort by that too, which
Yes.
was
So
super
then
handy.
you will know, okay, I want to prioritize interviewing the people who've answered 3 out of 3. If you answered 0 out of 3, you kind of have already sorted yourself out. So
Hmm.
I think that that has been a game changer. We've had that launched for the last, I would say, year. And one of the things that I'm most proud about that feature, that was not our idea. We had an employer who came to us and said, I love working with you guys, but we've been getting a lot of applicants. And I wish that there was a way for us to kind of like pre-screen before we actually went through the interview
Hmm.
process. So she came to us with that idea, and we then implemented it, all because of her. So that is something that I
Yeah.
am really proud about, just because we really truly do value our employer feedback. We want people to have a great experience, whether they are an employer or a job seeker, but especially those employers, because they are paying to play. And so we have implemented a number of improvements and developments on our site strictly based on that feedback that we get from people.
Yeah, one of the things that I particularly used that feature for was remote, right? I didn't It's very difficult to start a person who has never worked remote before into a fully remote position, particularly if they're not even in my state, right? So
Yes.
that was one of the questions that we put in there, and we weren't necessarily cutting people out because of that. But if you have remote experience and you're applying for a remote job, that was a big difference for us, right? I know that you have at least experienced the solidarity of it all, right? It can get a little lonely for some people.
No, absolutely. So that's actually going to be my next number 4, is I do think if you are somebody who you are hiring for a fully remote role, that it is beneficial to hire somebody who has remote experience prior to
Mhm.
you hiring them. But that being said, I am also a big believer in the importance of people, especially people who are younger in their careers, thinking I'm going to get out of college and I'm going to go right into a remote job. I personally will not hire somebody who has not worked in an office. I
Mhm.
want to know that you know how to show up when the doors open at 8 a.m. and that you have to surround yourself with other coworkers that maybe you don't see eye to eye with, and that there's just a little bit more accountability that comes
Mhm.
to working in an office. So when it comes to me hiring people, I won't hire somebody for a remote job if you have not worked in an office, but I also want to see that you have some remote experience as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think going into an office, you learn a level of etiquette by existing there
Mm.
that should still apply to a remote position. But if you've never worked in an office, you probably have never experienced the culture of some of those etiquette pieces that are so critical. Especially like communication wise, show up on
Yes.
time wise, managing your own time wise, those sorts of things are difficult. And I don't think that everyone is cut out for remote. Everybody might
No.
want remote, but not everyone is cut out for
Nope,
remote.
that is a hard reality. There are a lot of people who they are not meant to work remote. And I really do think that it is not a right, it is a privilege.
Yes.
And so I think you do have to go pay your dues in an office, and just like you said, there are a lot of etiquette and, different elements that you learn, especially when you're younger in your career, just being around conversations, being a fly on the wall from watching other people, usually those who would be considered to be your leaders, whether that's C-suite, just being physically in person with them, watching how they speak to people. There's a lot that can just be learned strictly from being an observer in
Mhm.
those types of situations. And then I think I have I need to give one more piece of advice
I
on
think
that.
so.
And this is going to be remote or not remote. If you're an employer, please let people know where they stand in the process.
Oh, yeah.
This is so important. This is one of the biggest things that we get from job seekers is I just want to be able to go find a place where I can apply for jobs and I know where I am. If you are not interested in me, that's fine, but just let me know. And
Mhm.
man, I totally understand where that is. So we really have made that whole process easier, whether it, I hate to say rejection,
Mhm.
because it's not rejection, it's redirection, right? And maybe that's what we should rename it so people aren't so stressed about doing that. But we do have, when job seekers apply through the platform, you can actually send them messages and let them know where they stand in the process. And those
Mhm.
don't come from you personally. So if Natalie is hiring for, again, a social media manager position, and I apply for her job and I am not a good fit, when she sends me a message through the platform, it does not come from Natalie McFarland. It will then come from McFarland Productions. So there's
Mhm.
also no like personal connection
You're
there,
not
which I
like
think is
personally rejecting
yes,
a person. Yeah.
exactly. But honestly, that is such a big thing, and I would just encourage people. And actually, that's something that we are working in developing is it figuring out a way to where we know that we can't necessarily require people to reject their applicants, or at least, again, kind of like let them know where they stand in that process, but figuring out a way to where maybe we offer a future discount for people who have let every applicant in the process, whether, like, again, rejected them, told them where they are. But we really want to incentivize companies to do that and make it easy for them. So we're
Yeah.
working on ways that we can do that.
Yeah,
But
we
that's my
use
last piece.
yeah, we use that too. The it was I when I hit rejection, I wasn't actually expecting it to give me an option to message them, and then when it did, it had this great little preloaded email. I was like, oh, that's pretty good already, you know. And so I utilized that a lot, especially early in the process when we were just getting some people that were just the experience was not a fit, right? From the resume perspective, they were not a fit. After that, we ended up emailing people individually, right? I wanted to give
Mhm.
that personal touch, especially if they had spent time talking with us through interview or maybe multiple interviews. So it is a really big part of that. And I agree with you. I think one of the most frustrating things for people is when it's just hanging out there. And they just have no idea why or like what's happening with it, right? I just rather just close the door or
Yeah.
tell me maybe not this one, right? We actually did a few that I've had some interviews with after the fact that I said, you know, I don't think this role is yours, but I do think we could work together from a contract perspective. So we've actually picked up 3 or 4 different contractors from a film side perspective that when we do those larger productions, we can now bring them in too. So technically, I hired multiple people through the West this time.
I love that. Well, and I will say that is also something that I am proud of is, and I have had this since prior to me even having Of the West. I was in a role where I had to hire somebody, and it came time to give people rejection to let them know where they were in that process. And so I sat down and I wrote a very heartfelt email that basically said, like, okay, you're not the right fit for this, but just because you're not the right fit doesn't mean that you are worthless or less than. What this means is it just wasn't the right time. And
Mm-hmm.
there are still a lot of great qualities about you, and like you are still have the potential to go far. Your life is not tied to this specific job or job title. And so, like, I worked really hard on that. And I have
Mm-hmm.
used that now for well over 8 years, anytime
That's
that I have
awesome.
ever had to go through that process. And I have gotten people who have emailed me back and said, wow, I feel like I have never had a rejection email that actually made me feel that good. And like
That
I've
was
gotten
so
positive
nice.
feedback from people based on that rejection letter. And again, it's something that I had created probably at this point like 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I can still use it to this day. Thankfully, I don't have to use it very often. But it is one of those things that, again, I just think that it is so, so very vital, because when you are somebody who has been in that position of, okay, I've applied, now what? Do I need to send you an email checking in on the process every couple weeks? I don't want to inundate you, but I also would kind of like to know where I stand because this is the job I really want. Should I be looking to apply for other roles? What if I'm going to have to move associated with this? Like, you can already, that's just a sample of the hundreds of questions rolling around in
Right.
somebody's brain at that time. So do the right thing. I know it sucks. You don't have to make it hard. Take some time, especially now with ChatGPT. I mean, use that thing to help
Yeah.
you craft a really meaningful, heartfelt rejection letter that you can use for people. But
Yeah.
you got to let them know where they're at in the process.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's so critical. So from a remote position perspective, I think that when you're onboarding a person, there's a number of things that you can do that make that just so much more successful. Jessie, as you've talked to people who have either gotten positions through Of the West that are remote or employers that have brought people on remote, are there particular things that people are doing from an onboarding perspective that you feel like have actually made selected job applicants more successful?
Yeah, I think the first one, and this is a little bit embarrassing, but the fact, if anybody's even aware of the importance of onboarding, you're already headed in the right direction. I think that's one of those things that unfortunately not enough companies are focused on is, okay, so you've hired a really great candidate, but you have to realize they are coming into your company for the most part blind.
Mm-hmm.
They have not been involved in the inner workings, in your company culture, in, the processes that you deal with. And again, in any role, right? Whether it's HR, IT, sales, like what those processes are and kind of the hierarchy of how things work. And so in order to truly set them up for success, you have to really pull back the curtain and onboard them in a way that gives them all of the necessary information so that they have time to really learn that, not through a fire hose, but much more, and I don't want to say spoon fed either, but at a way that is obviously efficient to where they can come in and hit the ground running, but also to where you're giving them time to ask questions and get their feet wet. Because I will say, and this is not necessarily specific to Of the West, but just in general, there are a lot of people who don't make it past the 90-day mark when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
being a new hire, and they are going to get blamed for not being the right candidate. And I think that if you've been in that situation, you probably should ask yourself, were they not the right candidate? Or did I not take the time to onboard them to set them up for success? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that it's probably a 50-50. Yes, they were not the right candidate, or man, I probably could have done a better job of really peeling back that curtain so that they understood their role, how they needed to interact, who we are as a core. So I think that there's a lot that can be said just about onboarding and the importance of it in general.
Yeah, totally. And like your onboarding process, and then like sort of related, but not entirely, is your standard operating procedures, SOPs. Fun fact for you business owners out there, that makes your business a whole lot more valuable. So
Yeah, it
if
does.
if you want to just raise that EBITDA or SDE, however you're rating your business, just like create an efficient onboarding and SOP process and you are already winning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will also say, to add to that, You can't just say, "Oh, well, I did that 5 years ago. I'm ahead of the pack now
Oh,
that Natalie told me that." You got to revisit those.
yeah, yeah. Turns out SOPs change pretty quickly.
Right?
Uh,
And honestly,
um,
that's something that's easier said than done, right? But if you just have a reminder on your calendar for every 6 months to go back through and just double check, like, hey, are these things still the way that we do them? It is a whole lot easier to do that regularly. And again, you can set a reminder for every 6 months or at the top of every quarter, whatever that looks like for your business, depending on the size and the scope of what it is that you do. But it doesn't have to be as complicated as we make it out to be.
Yeah, ChatGPT is a great tool. Scribe is a
Mhm.
great tool. There's a million of them out there that will help you with that. I also am a firm believer that the person who holds the role should be the keeper of the SOP for that role, right?
Yes.
So once somebody is efficient in their role, right? This is not a day one thing, but once somebody is in and they're part of that role, they should be the ones thinking about updating, working on those SOPs like a living document, because especially if it has any kind of software involved, there's going to be updates. So it's
No
like a huge
kidding.
thing, but we could really rabbit trail there. What I'd like to do is kind of switch gears. You guys do a ton of support for the job seeker side. When a job seeker is looking for a remote role, let's flip it. What are your 5 recommendations for somebody who is looking for a remote role?
Oh, great question.
Okay,
Okay,
3 to 5.
so number one, which I think we kind of already touched on this for the employers, but I hate to burst your bubble or break your heart, but there is a good chance that you are not the right fit for a
Mhm.
remote role, no matter how bad it is that you need one, want one. That's just the reality of it. As I mentioned
Mhm.
earlier, I think that remote roles are a privilege, not a right.
Absolutely.
And
They should be listed on company benefits, in my opinion.
yes, absolutely. And I think that especially when it comes to entry type level positions, I think there's a lot of benefit to being taught in the office. I
Mhm.
think there's a lot of benefit to, again, like I said, being around people, coworkers to observe how they work, how they lead. I think it's really hard for somebody to get leadership skills when you are in a home office by yourself and you are not around other leaders.
Mhm.
Like that's number one. So when you think about it from that perspective, if you are going to be a leader in life, if you think that right now you're coming out of college and you're going to be the CMO at some point, yes, part of that is really knowing your stuff when it comes to marketing, but it's also being a good leader and manager of a team. And if you are only ever in a remote role, I think it's really hard to have the skill set needed to do that.
Yes, absolutely. CMOs are like any C-level individual like needs to have worked with people on a one-on-one type basis, or sitting around a conference table, right? There's just such a different feel. There again, that level of etiquette that you get from being in the office, you really need that office experience. Doesn't mean that the role of CMO or CEO or CFO or whoever it is can't be done remotely, but not having any experience working in person would make that a very difficult thing, in order to understand people at the level that you have to understand people to be in that C-suite.
Yeah, absolutely. So my next advice is that we see a far higher number of applicants for remote roles versus those that are in office. And again, it makes sense. The whole world wants them. So if you are a job seeker who is applying for a remote role, you are going up against the best of the best for that job in that industry. You need to have a top notch resume. And I will tell you, probably 80% of the resumes that we see that come across our desks, whether that is through the webinars that we host, through the resume services that we have, that we offer to job seekers, I'm kind of embarrassed about where resumes are this day and age,
Oh my
considering I feel like
gosh.
we should know this stuff by now, but we
Oh my
don't. And that's job
gosh.
security for us at Of the West. And that's great. We're here to help you. So if you're a little
Um,
bit nervous about your resume and you think, oh man, maybe my resume is not as good as I think it is, that's okay. We can help. But your resume really does have to be at like on its triple A game if you
mhm.
want to set yourself apart in a remote job. The next piece of advice, so piece of advice number 3 that I would say is, okay, so you're selected for a remote role. Now what? Especially if you are somebody who is maybe newer on the remote side of things, because I feel like once you've done it once, it's a whole lot easier to get hired, to know what you need to do to get another remote role.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, is okay, so you're hired. You have to be very organized. You have to have a process. You have to you can't just work in your sweatpants all day. Like, put on a structured waistband, get yourself ready, get in your office. And again, you have to be very, very detail oriented, very, very organized with all of your files, with checking in. You have to have a very open way of communicating with people, so that, because when it comes to the people you're working for, they don't believe in that old adage of no news is good news.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be hearing from you. Not every time that you finish a document or finish a project, but you at least need to.
I don't need to know that you took a bathroom break, but.
Yes, exactly. But there is it's very, very important to being somebody who is good at communicating about where you are in the process. Whether you might not need to make an update every single day, but every other day, kind of give an update as to where you are. Again, if you're in Slack, if your team works in Asana, making sure that you're using those features of like, this project is completed, and checking those boxes, just going the extra mile when it comes to your way of working, your organization skills, and your overall communication, because that then gives your employer or your team or your manager confidence in you, because they can't see you work, but they still need to feel confident in you, to know that, one, you are the right hire for them, but two, that you are just the right candidate overall. Because yes, you may be in the role right now, but what's next? You may want a promotion, or to make some kind of other impact in that company. And if you have provided trust to your team, then they're going to feel that you are a good person for that promotion, for that leadership award, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, totally. And some of the things that you pointed out there are like the little things, right? Sure, structured waistband, but I also highly agree what you said, in your office, right? And I think that this is a key to remote work. Do not allow yourself to just like work at your dining room table, and somebody, hopefully the person who I'm kind of picking on right now, is not listening to this. If you are, you know who you are, and I love you, but give yourself an office space, some area that can house the work. That is not just for you, not just for the employer. That is for you. Because the hardest thing is if you have your desk in your bedroom and your computer is on, right? And especially in the video world, like sometimes you run exports overnight, right? So you just let it run while you're not sitting there, because it'll take hours and hours sometimes to export some of these larger projects, right? Please don't let the work be staring at you in the face while you're trying to sleep. Like, that is not good for you, and it is not good for the company. Pick an area that you can shut the door or whatever it is, right? Put it aside for the night, so that at the end of the day, you can be gone. That was the number one thing that we did here in the home office, is we put our office somewhere that we could shut the door, right? So my office is in our basement. We have built it into a very nice office space. It's fully finished and all those things. But at the end of the day, I can shut the door and there's no laptop staring at me in the face.
Yes. Well, and I also think, kind of going on to that, is know the way in which you work best. So I know I'm most productive in the morning. That is when, number one, I am going to check all of the big, most important things off of my list, because I know that's when my head is clear, when I'm most creative. So I'm not going to waste time, calling for doctor's appointments and things of that nature. But I also always work in my office in the morning. Then in the afternoon, I know personally, I need a change of scenery. I need a different change of pace. So whether that is going outside for a little bit, if the weather is good, sometimes maybe my list doesn't allow that. I still have a number of things that I absolutely have to get crossed off that day. So then I do take my work somewhere else, whether that is, sometimes when it comes to the afternoon and I have a bunch of just like the little admin things, I
Mm-hmm.
will take myself to the couch because I want like that comfy space to just
Yep.
kind of like dig in. But I know personally I need that change of pace and change of scenery.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I attack those big projects in the morning. I leave the smaller stuff until the end of the day. But that is how I work best. There may be somebody listening who is completely opposite of that. You need to figure out how you are the most efficient, most effective, and the best employee, because then that's going to make you feel great. And when you feel great, you're going to have your best output as far as work goes. And it really is that kind of like closed loop system. The better you feel, the better you're going to do for people, the better you're going to do for people, the better you're going to feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like to that point, outside is like it for me, right? If I probably should have picked a career where I was outside like a lot more than I am, even though like when we're on the road, we are outside quite a lot when we're shooting and things, but when we're in the office, like not outside enough. So we actually built, this is extreme, right? Like not everybody's going to do this, but we actually built like a back patio that's like 30 by 40 and has a cover, it has power, it has heaters in the cover and like all kinds of stuff so that we could spend as much time as possible in our quote unquote outdoor office, right? Working. So we like actually set up a separate space outside because I'm like a plant. I need the sunshine. And
That honestly, oh, you are speaking my language, and I am so envious because that is my thing. That's what I actually asked my mom for my birthday last year is I wanted a lawn chair outside that I could actually like put my legs up
mm-hmm.
on, so kind of like an Adirondack chair, but so that I could continue to take my laptop outside and just work from my lap. Because again, when the weather is good, I too am a plant. I need my sunshine. I need my fresh air. I need cows mooing, birds
Mm-hmm.
chirping, all those good sounds.
Yeah, for sure. There's nothing better than being out there. You know, one day last summer I can think of in particular, we had the whole team here and we're sitting out around the table and we were doing our strategic planning meeting. We do those in person. I highly recommend this for anybody who's doing a remote company. Get together, do a hard working day that is a strategy meeting, and then the next day to go do something fun. We usually float the river or go crabbing or something like that. But when we were sitting out there for a strategic planning meeting, a doe and a fawn just like walked by, like within like 20 yards of us. And it was like a total distraction for like 10 minutes for the meeting. But it was just so nice that that was the distraction. And it wasn't like somebody's computer is lighting up, right, with
Mm-hmm.
emails, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Um, well, I can't say enough about Of the West, and I really started this with bragging on you guys, but I cannot say enough about what you guys are doing there at Of the West. I think that you have had so many great people come through, either as job seekers or as employers, and your experience in this space is huge. And people should be, if they're applying, utilizing your resume services. Like, absolutely should be doing it. I think it is good to have a second opinion and take that through that. Employers should also use your experience on how to better recruit, because I think that that's really what you've built is this very strong ability to find the right people for the right roles.
Oh, well, thank you. I so appreciate that. And I will give the compliment back to you. You, Natalie, are somebody who you believed in the vision. Back when Of the West was just a little baby business, and you probably didn't get the right candidates that you were hoping for, but you still could see what could be ahead. And so you used the company anyways. And because of people like you, we have been able to have the most incredible job seekers who come apply for jobs. And because we have those incredible job seekers, we have attracted incredible employees. But I am so thankful to you and the other people out there just like you who believed in us from day one when what was actually fundamentally there was far less than probably what they wanted, but they knew if they used it that what they wanted would come into fruition. And so I just have so much respect for you in for always being a cheerleader and for always believing in me and people like you who saw the vision in Of the West. You guys have, because I am a big believer in you have to walk the walk. I am now far more willing to give businesses a chance when it comes to, I don't necessarily know that you're all the way there yet, but I see the vision and I know that it takes people buying into that
Mm-hmm.
in order for anything to grow and flourish the way that we want it to. So I'm just incredibly grateful for you.
Yeah, well, yeah, I've had some incredible hires. Hopefully, our start on Monday will also be a huge success. I know she will be. She's incredible and really excited about that. But we've had some incredible hires throughout the West. So, I don't think we could have built the team that we've built without having a platform that you built.
Oh, well, thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being part of it. How do people get a hold of you?
Yes. So if you are interested in applying for jobs or hiring people through Of the West, you can go to ofthewest.co. You can also find us on Instagram and LinkedIn at ofthewest.co over on Instagram. And then LinkedIn is obviously very easy to find as well. You can find us on Facebook too. We're not on TikTok. So if that's where you were looking for us, sorry, you won't be able to find us. And then I'm personally Mrs. J Jarv. So MRSJJARV on all platforms.
Awesome. And if you are not signed up for your email newsletter, you are absolutely in the wrong. You need to be signed up for the Of the West newsletter. Even like sign up for all of them, quite frankly, because you are giving a masterclass in email marketing. Let me just throw that out there. And number two, the Leaders of the West podcast, 10 out of 10. I listen to as many episodes as I can possibly consume. So you're doing a great job on all fronts.
Well, make sure you definitely go back and listen to the Leaders of the West episode that Natalie was on because we talked about a bunch of great stuff. So I'll make sure that link, I'll send that over to you, Natalie, so that you can put that in the show notes. So
we'll backlink each other. That's fun.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jessie. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.